was announced a few hours ago?
Yeah. Well, there were lots of questions, of course, early on. I think many people expected the president to back off of the threat. It upset many Americans. The language that he used, the overwhelming impact of that threat of threatening an entire civilization seemed un-American. People started talking about war crimes. So it was an unpopular statement, and I think added an extreme amount of pressure on him to fix it today. So he was getting criticism not only from Democrats, but from Republicans and MAGA, the MAGA wing as well. So he backed off once again. We say thank goodness for that, because the opposite would have been complete disaster for the region and beyond. But we still have to see, what does this mean? It means initially that both sides blinked. He blinked by agreeing to it, and the Iranians blinked by coming off of their demand for a complete cessation of hostilities, not a ceasefire. So this is only a ceasefire. They know what has happened in Gaza. They know what has happened in Lebanon. They don't like the ceasefire, but that's what they've got, and they've got 2 weeks to move forward. We know that they were pretty close with regard to the nuclear file, even as the negotiations were going on. So I believe that an agreement can be made on that particular file. The other parts, the president and the U.S. military, aided by Israel, have certainly degraded their military to a significant degree. We are going to get the Strait of Hormuz opened, although, of course, before the attack, the Strait of Hormuz was open. So the president will get immediate relief on that, but there are going to be some very tough questions coming up in the near future. Why did we do this? What, in the end, did we gain? And did we get something that we couldn't have got through negotiations?
No, I think that's right, because, as other commentators have said already this morning on this show and elsewhere, we haven't got any guarantee that Iran's capability to create a nuclear weapon has been completely degraded at all. We don't know that for sure. And so, what has Trump achieved on paper? Not a great deal, apart from a hugely expensive conflict which paid for by America, and a fair bit of summary damage of Iranian infrastructure.
And our Gulf allies' infrastructure. And they are not going to be well pleased right now. They, of course, were terrified at the thought of the likely Iranian retaliation had President Trump gone forward. But we are leaving them with, I keep saying, a wounded bear. Iran has the ability to claim victory of a sorts. On the one hand, to stand up to the United States of America and Israel, the most powerful country in the region and the most powerful country in the world, and they are still standing. Perhaps several feet under the ground, but they're still standing. So the allies in the region are not going to be happy with this state of affairs. We don't know if, as they open the Strait of Hormuz, are they still going to be charging ships that are going through the Strait of Hormuz? They have said that they want compensation, and levying a fee on transit is one way of rebuilding their coffers. They may get something they wouldn't have gotten otherwise, which is an immediate lift of sanctions or an immediate unfreezing of assets. Whatever those 10 points that they have put forward, President Trump said that they are a basis for further negotiations.
And I suppose just finally, we shouldn't underplay the perceived role of Pakistan in all of this. The Pakistani negotiators were described by one of my my earlier correspondents as the adult in the room who stood up and actually made this happen. And apparently, Pakistan were urging Donald Trump in the run-up to this not to carry out his threat of complete destruction of the Iranian civilization. So, Iran themselves are not a neutral country. They're also involved in their own conflict with Afghanistan and have been for some time. But, it would seem that they have played a useful role in averting what could have been a pretty messy situation.
They have. And of course, they had a good relationship with President Trump, having nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize and given him credit for solving a war between Pakistan and India. The Indians were not quite so clear on that, but the Pakistanis were. Certainly, the Egyptians and the Turks were equally urging the president to find a way other than his threats. So there were grown-ups in the room. We won't undersell Pakistan's role, but they certainly were aided by our other allies, Turkey and Egypt. And we know that Qatar had tried for many months in Oman as mediator between us and the Iranians. So there were many calmer heads in the region and nearby that tried to prevent this from happening, and certainly were helping us focus on how to get out of it.
Very good.